Welcome back to H-Lot Gaming, and this week in Godforge, episode 4, I believe. Trying to change it up a little bit, start with a different screen instead of just right on the video. Thought it looked a little bit better. It is funny, though. You can't tell on the thumbnail. I used AI to generate this, obviously, but these people don't really have faces, and when it's tiny, you can't see it. But you can now, but I still think it looks pretty good. But anyways, let's get to the Tuesday video. All right, so this one will be pretty short and sweet this week because it's really a demo of one of their VFX artists and his process. I would suggest on this one you actually go check it out because me describing it isn't really going to give you what you want or do it any justice. It is interesting, you can see some of the guy's work right here. So he's obviously very talented. I did laugh at this part with the Matrix thing because Simon says, people look at that and think it's pretty easy. And I was like, who's looking at that thinking it's easy? Because I don't. But maybe he's thinking some people look at it and go, oh, you just can sort of left click and retexture or something and it changes to like that, the code from the Matrix. But yeah, go give it a watch. We'll go to the beginning, kind of show what he starts with, this right here, and then eventually he adds in a character who the skill is for, and he kind of fakes like he doesn't get what he wants. I assume if he really wanted to get the final effect, like you'll see later, he could go almost right to it, but he kind of walks us through the process like, oh, there's too many, they're too big, they're not rotating, they're lasting too long, I want it random, blah, blah, blah. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, it's a good little tutorial, but we'll just skip to the end where we kind of see his final work. Yeah, pretty good. I don't know what exactly this skill is going to do. And he did this in about 15 minutes. You can see down there in the timer. Well, that's Simon's video, so he did an even less. He could probably do it in, a couple minutes if he was explaining it. But that was it for the Tuesday video. Kind of a glimpse of VFX. Didn't really reveal any new characters or anything. I guess we saw a skill animation, which we haven't seen before, but that's about it. So let's take a look at the Thursday podcast. Okay, so this week's podcast had a couple topics, PC versus mobile, and then they talked a lot about kind of what ifs, how they can keep people engaged, I would say is how I describe it. So the first 15 or so minutes is sort of how do you feel, mobile or PC? They all kind of agreed that you need both. And they did say that Godforge would have a PC client. I believe we already knew that. I was kind of hoping they would say if that would be part of the beta or not. They didn't. I don't remember if Simon said it would or not in the past. I think he said he wanted it to be, but we weren't sure. Or not we. They weren't sure if that was going to be part of the beta or not. They said grinding time. They kind of talked the difference between, I forget what games they use, but they, Supercell games, Clash of Clans, and I forget the other one they use, but they said, you can log in, get a lot of stuff done, and then you have your resources, if you only have a short amount of time every day, they don't want to make it hours and hours long. And then the other gentleman, you'll see Dirk on there in the other gentleman is Crouching Grandpa. They also talked about, simplicity is the key to growth. I don't know who, I've heard them say this before, and it's a very common saying, easy to learn, hard to master. So they have that mindset, it seems like. And then they said it's important to, it can't be too grindy, because Chosen used the example. He tried League of Legends on his phone. He said it was just too difficult to play long sessions. His hands would get cramped or whatever. That was about the first 15 or so minutes, sort of PC versus mobile, but they all acknowledge, you got to have both of them. And then Dirk actually talked about in these games how it's kind of interesting that an aspect is you want to get better to play less, and I can definitely relate to that. Anyone who's played Raid can, you want to get, either your ice golem or your spider runs down, because those are two that can take a while, especially ice golem. So if people are familiar with that, you want to, just like he said, get better to play less, which is sort of an odd situation to be in, but it also makes you feel like you've accomplished something. And then he said, we do want to have dailies. Dirk did. He said they want to have dailies, but they don't want it to feel like people are forced to play. Kind of, he didn't say raid, but let's all be honest, that's kind of how raid makes you feel now, like you have to win a live arena battle. That's probably the most annoying one. Even though I do arena every day right now, but it's to get, what's his name? I'm very close to Septimus, I think his name is. And probably once I get that, I will not be interested in playing it. And then related to that, they were kind of talking about different ways to keep people engaged, sort of content that's fun to play that you want to log in and play if you have the time, but doesn't necessarily give you rewards that would leave other people farther behind you. So I know they've talked about in the past a sort of I forget what you call it, but it's a PvP where normalized PvP. But I also thought it'd be cool if they did, if you've played, what the heck, there's a Marvel game. It's sort of like a third game I play. It's my second game, but other games they'll come up and I'll try, like right now, King Arthur Legends Rise is my second game, so it's kind of a third game. I don't even play it every day, but Marvel Future Fight, there you go. So they have a PvP mode. I think it's called Timeline Battle. No, it's not Timeline Battle. I don't remember what it is. But either way, you pick a team and it auto fights. I'm not necessarily interested in the auto fight part, but the cool part about that mode is I don't remember if it changes weekly or monthly or seasonally or every season, but there's bonuses and debuffs that you get, like these characters have increased damage or this type of damage or this type of character takes more damage. So I thought that could be cool if you did something like that. Make it separate from normal PvP, kind of have a season of that. Like, oh, if you want to compare it to Raid, say like, I don't know, rare spirit champions, HP base, all have like a 2x damage boost or something like that. And then they're also talking about doing seasons for the clan boss, possibly, or would people who play the game like something like that? And I thought that sort of application, like I was just talking about, this type of person, or not person, this type of character does extra damage, could be applied if you had a clan boss season. Something as simple as whatever sort of the poison damage set is in Raid. I can't remember what it's called. I don't even remember what chance. I think it's 25% chance to land. I could be wrong about that. I haven't looked at my clan boss team in a long time. It works. I hit a button and it goes. You guys know how that is. But what if they did, this type of character gets like 2x damage, but then they also start off with a immovable weaken debuff that lasts like 3 turns or whatever. So the challenge is sort of, can I get this team to live long enough where that clears and then I just have insane damage? But you'd also have to make it to the point where it's worth it. Because going back to the Marvel Future Fight example, like a lot of times those people just ignore the debuffs and the buffs because they're not big enough or the characters are too powerful, and you just use the same, Uber team you've always been using. But if they could apply that in a way that it could be useful, specific types of buffs and debuffs for specific types of champions for either sort of a PvP mode or a clan boss mode, and make it like a seasonal tournament or something. Maybe they do both. I just think that's kind of stuff that might keep people engaged. And then Crouching Grandpa used that sort of the same example, but he flipped it and used it on the clan boss. He said, what if you have a season where now the clan boss does different types of damage instead of, before it did fire, now it does poison, or it does poison and fire, something like that. And then they said, What about leaderboards? Is that a good way to incentivize people to play? And Dirk seemed to think it was because it gives you the ability to take a look and see, do I want to compete? Can I compete? Do I have the resources? And he says, if you look at it and somebody just has an insane amount of points and you know you're not going to win, then you really don't feel like you missed out on something. Whereas, some of this other stuff, you're like, oh man, I can't get this specific goal done, so I can't get this reward. You just feel like, he didn't use say the word failure, but he said, you kind of just feel like you're not accomplishing anything in the game when really you still are progressing. You're getting rewards, sort of the basic rewards, but you're not getting that extra rewards. He said, leaving stuff on the table it'll knot people is the example he used. And then they talked about, should groups be smaller? I would say yes. I think it'd be better if they were, 50. I think it's a better size. They talked about, basing the group on your past performance and the rank of your previous rank in a tournament, which is good. Can have some abuse though, obviously, if you purposely try to tank stuff. They talked about, but they did talk about that, you can't really call it Smurf. I'm not super familiar with that term, but I am familiar with what Chosen talked about. He said, a new player will start an alt account and then it'll be super low ranked and they'll just go up through the ranks fairly quickly because they've been playing for years, but it looks like this account's brand new, so they get matched with less skilled players. And then they said, should we allow creators to create their own tournaments for different things? And they use, the example of like a power cap on a PvP tournament. I think they were talking about account power, but I thought it could be cool too if you. I've seen this in different games too, where it's essentially based on the character's power. They have a cost, and you only have so much to spend. So then, the power cap is, let's say, like 1,000,000 power. Who knows how it'll scale in this game? We don't know so far. But how will it scale? Or sorry, how will you build that team based on the amount you have to spend? That could be a cool idea for a tournament. And then they discussed, community run tournaments. So if you're a content creator, you could make your own tournament. Chosen said, he would have loved to have done that back in his raid days. And he could have, given away a keyboard or something to the person who wins. But I was thinking, in addition to that, if you give people the ability to create their own tournaments, let's say I did it, if I was making raid content and I could do it in raid, I might throw 2,000 of my own gems in there, divided up, I don't know, among the top 5, so you get some type of reward even in game. I don't know how else you could do it. People really don't want silver, and you can't. I don't know about potions. Maybe you essentially give Godfogre a certain amount of silver, and they let you give energy out to winners as well, or something like that. So yeah, that was about it for this week. Not too much in terms of leaks, although I guess you could say last week with Ragewood there wasn't a ton of leaks anyways, but there was a lot of interesting answers to things he has to try and get answers for on leaks. But overall, very interesting. A lot of sort of speculative talk on how they could keep the community engaged if you're the type of player that likes to grind a lot, as opposed to one who just wants to log in and play for a short amount of time every day, get your resources, and progress that way. And that's about it for this week. Sort of a slower week, but thanks for listening or watching. If you wouldn't mind, if you're not a subscriber, hitting that subscribe button. It's a low goal, but if I could get, I don't know, 1 subscriber a week, that'd be pretty good to me. If you don't want to subscribe, but you're okay with giving me a thumbs up, I'd appreciate that as well. And thanks for watching. Bye.